So, Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, walked straight past Queen Camilla at a royal gathering and did not bow, did not curtsy, did not offer the slightest physical acknowledgement that the king's wife was even in the room. King Charles, who has spent 2 decades engineering this exact moment of public deference, erupted so violently that the shouting could be heard 3 corridors away at Balmoral, and nobody saw it coming because the entire royal machine had been built to prevent precisely this collision. The how is the real story, and it begins with a promise that was made and then broken. A fortune worth £1.2 billion and a 50,000-acre estate where the rules of deference are supposed to be absolute. The Royal Order of Precedence, codified and updated after the accession of King Charles III, is not a suggestion. The Lord Chamberlain's office confirmed in autumn 2022 that every member of the royal family, including the heir apparent, must bow or curtsy to the King and to the Queen Consort. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, is required to bow his head to Camilla. No exception exists. The rule applies to him and to Catherine. That has been the palace's position since Queen Elizabeth II died. The force behind that position is a single document. On 5 February 2022, her Accession Day message marking 70 years on the throne, the late Queen declared her sincere wish that when the time comes, Camilla will be known as Queen Consort. 13 words detonated a 17-year-old agreement. In 2005, when Charles and Camilla married, the palace announced that Camilla would use the title Princess Consort when Charles became king. That was the compromise designed to manage the fury over the woman who had been the third party in the collapse of Charles's marriage to Diana. The woman who, in Diana's 1995 Panorama interview, made the marriage a bit crowded. The Princess Consort promise was the firewall. Queen Elizabeth II removed it, and the moment she did, the requirement for William to bow to Camilla as Queen Consort became inescapable. The setting is Balmoral Castle, the 167-room granite fortress on 50,000 acres of Aberdeenshire deer forest, grouse moor and river. August 2024 is the first full summer gathering since the Queen died at Balmoral in September 2022. The family is there, the King and Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, the Princess Royal. Morning photographs show the King in a tweed jacket, the Queen in a midi dress, the careful images of unity. The evening is different. In the drawing room, with the green tartan carpet, the gilt-framed portraits of Queen Victoria, the stone fireplace, the family assembles before dinner. The King and Queen Consort are already present. Others have arrived and performed the required bows. The door opens. William and Catherine walk in. They do not bow, do not curtsy. They walk past Queen Camilla as if she is furniture and take their positions. Accounts published by Reality T on 12th of August 2024, corroborated by the Mirror US and the Royal Observer, describe a deliberate, optically devastating bypass. The King sees it from across the room. His face turns a deep, dark red. The Queen Consort's jaw tightens. The dinner proceeds, the atmosphere frozen solid. The real confrontation happens after the plates are cleared. Charles summons William to his private study, a small oak-paneled room on the first floor, with a desk that belonged to Prince Albert. The King's voice, according to household staff who spoke to the Royal Observer, carries through the closed door. He demands an explanation. He tells William that Camilla is his queen, that the Order of Precedence is not optional, that the heir's refusal to bow is an act of public insubordination undermining the crown. He uses the word humiliation. He says Camilla has done nothing to deserve this, not after everything she has endured, not after the late Queen's explicit wish. He demands absolute physical deference. immediately in front of the entire family the following morning. William does not give it. He does not shout. He does not apologize. The silence from the air is louder than the king's shouting. The study door slams so hard that a staff member 3 corridors away drops a tray. To understand why William is prepared to do this, you have to look at the money, because the money is what makes the rebellion possible. The Duchy of Cornwall is a private estate established by Edward III in 1337 to provide an income for the heir to the throne. It is a £1.2 billion portfolio spanning 130,000 acres across 23 counties, including the Oval Cricket Ground, 67,000 acres of Dartmoor, the Isles of Scilly, and entire villages in Herefordshire. When Queen Elizabeth II died on the 8th of September 2022 and Charles became king, the duchy passed automatically to Prince William. It was a legal inheritance, not a gift, and with it came total financial independence. The duchy's integrated annual report for 2023/2024 shows that Prince William received a private income of £23.6 million. That is not a salary or a sovereign grant allocation. It is his money, and the king cannot touch it. Place that against the sovereign grant. The taxpayer-funded pool financing the official duties of the monarch and working royals totaled £86.3 million for 2023/2024. The king controls the allocation. He decides who receives funding for staff, travel, engagements. A king who wants to bring a family member to heel can squeeze that funding. Charles has watched his mother use the mechanism for decades. On the night of the Balmoral confrontation, he makes it clear he is prepared to use it. But the money well goes deeper. The duchy's commercial portfolio, valued by Savills in spring 2024, includes the Poundbury development in Dorset, the mixed-use urban extension on duchy land that has generated £1.2 billion in total investment since 1993, delivering ground rents and commercial leases exceeding £4.7 million in the last financial year. The Nansledden development in Cornwall, a 540-acre extension to New Quay, broke ground in 2014, is projected to deliver 4,000 homes by 2035, with an end valuation north of £800 million. The duchy's marine portfolio, administered from St Mary's in the Isles of Scilly, covers the seabed extending 12 nautical miles, generating harbour dues and mooring fees that rose 7% year-on-year. The agricultural holdings, 67,000 acres of Dartmoor alone, command premium rents from tenant farmers on a 17-year review cycle, the next due in 2027. A valuation by Knight Frank for the office of the Duke of Cornwall in March 2024 placed the total capital value at £1.24 billion, a figure grown 43% since 2015. William does not just have income, he has a self-sustaining economic engine entirely outside the sovereign grant framework. The jewels are never just jewels. They are portable assets, political instruments, symbols of dynastic legitimacy. The Princess of Wales has access to a collection appraised by Garrard & Company in 2023 for the Royal Collection Trust, exceeding £80 million. The Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara, commissioned by Queen Mary in 1914 and worn by Diana at the 1989 state banquet for the President of Nigeria, is valued at £2.2 million. The Nizam of Hyderabad necklace, a Cartier diamond necklace given to Queen Elizabeth II as a wedding gift in 1947, is valued at £85 million and was worn by Catherine to the National Portrait Gallery Gala in 2014. The sapphire and diamond engagement ring, Diana's 12-carat Ceylon sapphire surrounded by 14 solitaire diamonds, was appraised by the Gemological Institute of America in 2010 at £300,000, but its auction value today would exceed £1.5 million. The Queen Consort does not have access to the Cambridge Lover's Knot. The Princess of Wales does. The jewels tell a story about who carries the legitimate line of succession, and the story is not about Camilla. The history is also about the woman who is not in the room. Diana, Princess of Wales, gave her panorama interview on 20th November 1995, and the line, "Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," rewired the public's understanding of the monarchy. The affair with Camilla Parker Bowles had been an open secret, but the interview made it permanent, recorded fact. William was 13 when he watched his mother speak those words. He was 15 when she died in a Paris tunnel on 31 August 1997, and he walked behind her coffin past 1 million people. The memory of that walk, the sound of the hooves, the silence of the crowd, is a lived experience that sits in his chest every time he enters a room where Camilla is seated. The 2005 marriage was supposed to manage that. The civil ceremony at the Windsor Guildhall on 9th April 2005 was followed by a service of prayer at St. George's Chapel. The Queen did not attend the civil ceremony. The palace's statement was explicit. Camilla would use the title Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, and when Charles became king, she would be known as Princess Consort. That was the bargain. The public would not accept a Queen Camilla. The bargain held for 17 years, through the Diamond Jubilee, through William and Catherine's wedding, through the birth of 3 children, through the slow rehabilitation of Camilla's image. Then Queen Elizabeth II issued the Accession Day message of 5 February 2022, and the bargain was dead. The Queen's sincere wish was a constitutional instruction. The moment she died, Camilla was Queen Consort, and the full force of the Order of Precedence applied. William was informed before the message was released, but not consulted. The decision was made by the Queen and the Prince of Wales, now King Charles, and the heir was expected to fall in line. That is the moment the rift began to open. The summer of 2024 is when it cracks wide. Now the second front, the institutional power struggle. The morning after the Balmoral confrontation, the King instructs his private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, to prepare a formal review of the Wales household's sovereign grant allocation. A briefing to the Sunday Times on the 18th of August 2024 reports that the King is deeply disappointed by the lack of respect shown to the Queen and that all options are being considered to uphold the Order of Precedence. That is Whitehall code for a financial squeeze. The King's office draws up a memo that would reduce the official duties budget for the Prince and Princess of Wales by 30%, forcing William to either fund his engagements from his own pocket or scale back his visibility. The King has miscalculated. The Duchy of Cornwall makes the threat hollow. The £23.6 million income is more than sufficient to fund the entire Wales household operation, the private office at Kensington Palace, the staff at Adelaide Cottage, travel, charitable initiatives, public engagements. When the memo reaches William's desk, his private secretary, Jean-Christophe Gray, responds with a single-page letter citing the Duchy's annual report, the specific figure of £23.6 million, and the Prince's willingness to fund his own official role without recourse to the sovereign grant. The letter is copied to the Lord Chamberlain and the Treasury. The implication is unambiguous. The Wales family is financially independent, and the King cannot touch them. The King's constitutional leverage is equally hollow. The Counsellors of State Act 2022, which received royal assent on 7th of September 2022, updated the list of individuals who can act on behalf of the monarch. The Act added the Princess Royal and the Earl of Wessex, but the primary deputy, the person constitutionally indispensable, remains the Prince of Wales. William is the only Counsellor of State who is a direct heir, the only one who can step into the King's role without triggering a regency question. The Act was passed precisely to ensure William's authority was not diluted by the Duke of Sussex, who had stepped back from royal duties, but the effect is that William is now politically untouchable. If the King attempts to sideline the Prince of Wales, he risks destabilizing the entire constitutional machinery of the Crown. The King's advisors know this. The Cabinet Office knows it. The National Security Secretariat knows it. William knows it. The King's bluff is called. The institutional power struggle becomes a stalemate, broken not by the King, but by the arrival of the one person who has been watching from the center of the storm. Before the ally arrives, the press war shaped the battlefield. The Balmoral incident broke on 12th of August 2024, and within 48 hours, the British media divided into three camps. The traditionalist broadsheet response, led by The Times and the Daily Telegraph, ran on 14th of August. The Times's leader, "A house divided cannot stand," argued that William's refusal to bow was a breach of constitutional decorum that strikes at the very foundations of the hereditary principle, citing the Lord Chamberlain's guidance, the Order of Precedence, and the explicit wishes of the late Queen. The Telegraph's coverage took a pro-Camilla line, describing the Queen Consort as a woman who has endured decades of public vilification with quiet dignity, and the Wales family's petulant display of inherited grievance as unbefitting a future monarch. A column by a former deputy private secretary to the Queen insisted that the Crown operates on precedent, not sentiment, and the precedent of the bow is absolute. The populist tabloid response, led by the Daily Mail, the Mirror, and the Sun, framed the incident as a morality play. The Daily Mail's 15th of August front page, "William Stand, the prince who refuses to bow to the woman who broke his mother's heart," paired a photograph of Diana in her panorama dress with Camilla seated at the Balmoral dinner. The Mirror US followed on the 16th of August with "The Bow That Never Came," focusing on the King's explosive rage. The Sun's 17th of August spread, "Charles's Fury, the King Demands a Curtsy He Cannot Command," included a timeline of the 2005 Princess Consort promise and the 2022 Accession Day message. The tabloid camp told a story of broken promises, maternal grief, and a son's quiet refusal to bend the knee. The Republican and anti-monarchist response was the most dangerous for the institution. The Guardian's 14th of August piece, "Two Houses, One Crown, the Royal Family's Civil War and the Case for Abolition," argued that the Balmoral confrontation was not a family quarrel, but a constitutional crisis dressed in ermine, a spectacle of a king and his heir fighting over who must bow. The New Statesman's 19th of August essay, "The Bow and the Broken Bargain," traced the incident to the 2005 promise and argued that the monarchy's entire structure of legitimacy rests on the fiction of continuity, and that fiction is now visibly unraveling in real time. The Republican camp does not care who wins the bow dispute. It cares that the dispute exists. The King is fighting on three fronts: William in the private rooms, the tabloids in the court of public opinion, where Diana's memory still polls higher than Camilla's presence, and the Republican argument that draws strength from every fracture. The Buckingham Palace press office attempts to counterbrief on 20th August, issuing a statement that the King and Queen Consort are focused on the work of the Crown and do not comment on private family matters. The statement is ignored. The press war is being won by the side that understands the public is not interested in the order of precedence. It is interested in a son who remembers his mother. With the press war raging and the financial and constitutional levers neutralized, the path forward is not a single track. It is a set of branching futures, each contingent on specific decisions. The first branch is the resignation option. If the king continues to escalate, insisting on a public apology and a formal curtsy at the King's Foundation launch at St. James's Palace, and William refuses, the Prince of Wales has a constitutional nuclear option not deployed since the abdication crisis of 1936. William can formally petition the Privy Council to delegate his Counsellor of State duties to the Princess Royal, withdrawing from public life and forcing the king to operate without his heir's visible support. The mechanism is set out in the Regency Act 1937 and the Counsellors of State Act 2022. A letter from William's private office to the Lord President of the Council, currently Penny Mordaunt, would trigger a formal review of the king's capacity to fulfill his duties without the active participation of the heir. The petition would not remove William from the line of succession, but it would make the king's position politically untenable. The cabinet secretary would be forced to advise the prime minister that the monarchy is in a state of constitutional paralysis, and the pressure on the king to abdicate would become overwhelming. The second branch is the Cold War option. If the king backs down, accepting that the apology will not come and the curtsy will not be performed, the monarchy enters a period of institutionalized split sovereignty. The King and Queen Consort continue their duties, the Prince and Princess of Wales continue theirs, and the two households operate as parallel courts with minimal interaction. The state opening of Parliament, the cenotaph service, trooping the colour become exercises in choreographed avoidance. The Wales family stands at one end of the balcony, the King and Queen Consort at the other. The press frames every public appearance as a proxy battle. The public, having chosen its side, accelerates the shift of optical authority to the Wales household, and the king's reign becomes a protracted twilight. A National Security Secretariat memo circulated on the 1 September 2024 and leaked to the Financial Times outlines contingency planning for a prolonged period of reduced operational coordination between the King's household and the household of the Prince of Wales. Whitehall Code for exactly this outcome. The third branch is the reconciliation option, the least likely but most transformative. If the king agrees to revise the Order of Precedence, carving out an exception for the heir apparent that does not require him to bow to the Queen Consort, the ceremonial collision is resolved, but the political cost is catastrophic. The exception would have to be gazetted by the Lord Chamberlain's office, published in the London Gazette, and communicated to the Commonwealth realms. It would be a public admission that the Queen Consort's status is conditional, that the 2022 Accession Day message was a mistake, and that the King's authority is not absolute. The Queen Consort would be publicly humiliated, her position permanently diminished. The reconciliation would be a victor's peace, imposed by the heir on the king, and the king's remaining years on the throne would be lived in the shadow of that defeat. The Wales household wants this option. The king cannot afford to give it. The stalemate persists. The ally arrives. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has been in the room for every moment of this conflict. She was at Balmoral when the bow was withheld. She was the one who walked past Camilla without a curtsy, with the same deliberate stillness she has brought to every public appearance since her marriage. Catherine knows the history. She knows the Diana archive. She knows the 2005 promise and the 2022 Accession Day message. She knows her husband has been carrying the weight of his mother's memory for 27 years, and she has decided the time for quiet acceptance is over. The conversation happens at Anmer Hall, the 10-bedroom Georgian country house on the Sandringham estate, a wedding gift from the Queen. It is a Saturday afternoon in late August 2024. The children are in the garden. The house is quiet. Catherine tells William she will not bow to Camilla. Not now, not ever. She says she made a promise to herself when she became a member of this family to protect her husband's dignity and her children's understanding of who their grandmother was. She says the king's demand for physical submission is a violation of the trust the public has placed in the Wales family, and that if they bow today, they will be bowing for the rest of their lives. She says the line that will become the quiet architecture of the next decade, the crown is not the same as the king's wife. William listens. He does not interrupt. When she finishes, he nods once, and the decision is made. The public reaction is already shifting. YouGov polling in the third week of August 2024 shows the Prince and Princess of Wales with a net approval rating of 63%, while the King's rating has dropped to 41% and the Queen Consort's to 32%. The press coverage frames the Balmoral incident not as a breach of protocol, but as a courageous stand by the heir against a deeply unpopular consort. The center of royal gravity is moving in real time, and the king can feel it slipping. The confrontation that has been building for months reaches its peak on the first weekend of September 2024 at Windsor Castle. The king summons William and Catherine to a private meeting in the Oak Room, a wood-paneled space on the ground floor of the castle's private apartments. The Queen Consort is present. The king has prepared a formal statement, drafted by his private secretary, demanding that William issue a public apology for the Balmoral incident, and that Catherine perform a curtsy to Camilla at the next official engagement, the launch of the King's Foundation Year at St. James's Palace. The statement is placed on the table. The king reads it aloud. He says the monarchy cannot survive internal defiance, that the late Queen's wish must be honoured, that the heir's duty is to the crown, and that the crown is embodied in the king and his queen. He demands a response. William stands. He looks at his father, then at Camilla. The room is so quiet that the ticking of the 18th century long-case clock in the corner is audible. Then he delivers the line that will be remembered as the moment the rift turned nuclear. I bow to the king out of duty to the crown father, but my family's respect is earned, not mandated, and I will not force my wife to perform submission for her. The king does not move. The Queen Consort's face is stone. The statement on the table is left unsigned. The meeting ends without a resolution. The Wales family leaves Windsor Castle through the sovereign's entrance, and the photograph of their departure, captured by a long lens across the Great Park, shows the Prince of Wales walking with his head held high, his wife's hand in his, and the King's standard flying over the round tower behind them. The verdict is permanent. The king cannot force the bow. The sovereign grant threat is neutralized by the Duchy of Cornwall. The constitutional threat is neutralized by the Counsellors of State Act. The public has chosen its side. The center of royal gravity and optical authority has transferred from the King and Queen Consort to the independent Wales household, and the monarchy will operate under a split sovereignty for the remainder of the king's reign. The rift is not a temporary disagreement. It is a fundamental fracture in the architecture of the family, and the cost is a permanent coldness that will color every state banquet, every trooping the color, every Christmas at Sandringham. The bow never came, and at Balmoral, the granite walls remember everything.